3 women, 1 man, 1 conversation that was never supposed to happen. The door closed, phones went off, and for the first time in years, Blake Shelton's ex-wife, his current wife, and his closest friend were all connected by one brutal truth nobody wanted to say out loud. Miranda Lambert stopped mentioning him completely. Gwen Stefani went silent on social media. Kelly Clarkson's jokes about Blake suddenly got careful. That wasn't coincidence. That was aftermath. Because what happened behind those ranch doors in early 2024 changed everything.
I thought it was the best thing that ever happened to you.
You're about to hear what insiders say really went down that night. The identity crisis nobody saw coming. The question that made everyone go quiet. And the decision that shocked an entire industry. 3 eras, 3 completely different versions of the same man. Miranda knew the hungry competitor. Gwen fell for the broken one. Kelly watched every version fall apart and rebuild. So when they finally talked about Blake's future, who got the final say? Or maybe that's the wrong question entirely. Stay right here, because this story, it's about to get real uncomfortable. And honestly, you're gonna see yourself in it too. Blake Shelton in 2024 is not the same guy who married Miranda Lambert back in the day. He's not even the same guy who fell for Gwen on a spinning red chair. And Kelly Clarkson, she watched every single version of him up close, laughing through the chaos while her own life was falling apart on the same stage. So when insiders say these 3 women had one serious conversation about Blake's future, you gotta ask yourself something. What could possibly bring together an ex-wife, a current wife, and a best friend who's literally seen it all? The door was closed, phones were off, and for the first time in years, 3 women who shaped Blake's life were connected by one conversation he never wanted to happen. You could almost hear the silence before anyone spoke. Heavy, careful. The kind of silence that says, this changes things. Miranda, Gwen, Kelly. 3 names, 3 eras, 3 completely different versions of the same man. And somewhere in that room, whether they said it out loud or not, Blake's entire future was just sitting there on the table. Insiders say it wasn't loud. No screaming, no slamming doors, just something way more intense. Honesty. Real, raw, unfiltered honesty. That's what makes it powerful, honestly. Because when truth shows up, it don't need volume. It just needs space. But here's where it gets complicated. Each of these women didn't just love Blake or stand beside him. They knew him in completely different seasons of his life. And those seasons, they don't always fit together nicely. Let's rewind a bit to understand what was really at stake here. When you think of Miranda Lambert and Blake Shelton, you think of that fiery, boots-in-the-dirt, country power couple energy. Small-town roots meeting big stage dreams. The kind of love that felt loud and fearless, like it could survive absolutely anything thrown at it. Back then, Blake was still building his name, still proving himself, still fighting for that top spot in Nashville. And you could feel it in the music. Over you, I'm so over you. The way you look in your 3-piece suit. Those lyrics weren't just songs they performed. They were their life. Raw and completely unfiltered. Miranda represented ambition, shared grind, competition, the version of Blake that wanted to win at everything, no matter what it cost him. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Winning changes you. And somewhere between award shows and headlines and late-night tour buses, something shifted. You could see it in interviews around 2014. The pauses got longer. The jokes felt heavier. Fame was happening fast, but the foundation underneath was cracking. Then came the split in 2015. And even years later, fans still whisper about it, because some stories don't feel finished. They just stop. No closure, no neat ending. Just 2 people who loved hard and left even harder. That kind of ending leaves residue. The kind that doesn't wash off, even when you're supposedly happy again. Now fast forward to 2015, same exact year. Enter Gwen Stefani. Different world entirely. Different rhythm. She wasn't boots and backroads. She was neon lights, California cool, decades of reinvention under her belt. When Blake and Gwen met on The Voice, it didn't look obvious at all. It looked unlikely. A country boy from Oklahoma and a pop icon from Anaheim? Which is exactly why people couldn't look away. 2 heartbreaks happening at once. 2 very public divorces. Same stage, same exact timing. And then suddenly something clicked between them. Those old No Doubt lyrics hit different when you're rebuilding your entire life from the ground up. Gwen didn't meet the Blake who was climbing the ladder. She met the Blake who had already fallen off it, who had already been humbled by divorce, by tabloid headlines, by the realization that fame don't fix loneliness. She saw the quieter version of him, the softer edges. The man who'd already tasted what fame costs and wasn't sure he wanted more of it. That matters a lot, actually. Because who you meet someone as can define everything about the relationship. Blake didn't have to prove anything to Gwen. She'd already seen him broken. And maybe that's exactly why it worked. But then there's Kelly. Kelly Clarkson wasn't a wife. She wasn't a past love story. But she was something else entirely. She was the friend who saw it all up close. Also on The Voice. Also navigating a brutal public divorce. Also standing under those same bright lights while the world watched her life unravel in real time. Kelly and Blake built a different kind of bond altogether. Playful, sharp, brutally honest, in the best way. You could feel it in their banter on air. The way she'd tease him relentlessly. The way he'd fire back without missing a beat. But underneath all those laughs, real respect. The kind you can't fake. Because Kelly knows what it's like to untangle your life in public. She knows what it's like when headlines write your story before you're ready to tell it yourself. She lived that song. Blake lived it too. And that shared pain? It builds trust you simply cannot manufacture. So when insiders say there was one serious conversation about Blake's future, you have to ask yourself, what exactly was on the table that night? Career stuff? Maybe. Identity stuff? Definitely. Because here's the part people don't talk about enough. Blake's recent decisions haven't just been professional moves. They feel deeply, painfully personal. Stepping away from The Voice after more than a decade wasn't just about scheduling conflicts. That was about alignment. About figuring out where he actually belongs now. And when you have three women who each represent a different version of who you used to be, that question gets heavy real fast. Miranda represents the Blake who fought for Nashville, the competitor. The edge, the hunger to prove everyone wrong. Gwen represents the Blake who chose love over industry pressure. The reinvention, the softer landing after a hard fall. Kelly represents the Blake who laughs through the chaos. The survivor. The friend who knows the scars, but doesn't need to see them to believe they're real. So imagine that emotional orbit for a second. Imagine three women, maybe not all physically in the same room, but connected through layered conversations, shared concerns, mutual friends, all circling around the same topic. Is Blake chasing charts, or is he chasing peace? Is he staying in the spotlight, or is he finally stepping back into the life he actually wants? And here's where the real tension surfaced. Not dramatic tension like in movies, identity tension, the kind that makes you question everything. Because when someone you care about shifts direction completely, it forces you to confront what you meant in their life. Was I part of who he is now? Or was I just part of who he was back then? That question stings. And it lingers in ways you don't expect it to. Fans have always sensed unresolved energy between Blake's past and present. Not scandal exactly, not betrayal, just emotional residue that never fully cleared out. And residue? It lingers in the quiet moments when nobody's watching. You see it when Miranda performs certain songs and the crowd goes completely silent, knowing exactly who she wrote them about. You see it when Gwen talks about finding safety after chaos, and her voice gets noticeably softer. You see it when Kelly jokes about men who think they know better, and the audience laughs a little too knowingly. These aren't random threads. They're chapters in the same book. Different perspectives on the same story. So what was actually said that night behind those doors? Insiders describe it as calm but direct, honest but careful. The focus wasn't blame or pointing fingers. It was future. Where does Blake Shelton belong now? Back on tour full throttle, chasing radio play and award show stages? Or at the ranch in Oklahoma, building something slower, quieter, more real? Because here's the truth. Nobody really wants to admit out loud. Success can start to feel like a costume after a while. And sometimes, the person who wore it best isn't the person you want to be anymore. There's something almost poetic about three strong women, each successful in their own right, each having survived public scrutiny, each understanding exactly what it costs to stay famous, all circling the same realization at the same time. Maybe the biggest power move isn't another headline. Maybe it's choosing quiet instead. But quiet has consequences too. What does it mean for legacy? For relevance? For the ego that's been fed by applause for over 20 years? And that's where the pressure really builds. You don't walk away from a chair on The Voice after 23 seasons unless something inside you has fundamentally shifted. That show wasn't just a gig for Blake. It was routine, family, exposure, relevance every single week for over a decade. It kept Blake in America's living room, spinning chairs and cracking jokes while the world changed around him. So when he stepped back in 23, people called it shocking, but insiders didn't. They called it overdue. Because the version of Blake who signed on back in 2011 isn't the same one sitting on that Oklahoma ranch today. Not even close. And that's where the emotional math gets really interesting. Think about it for a second. Miranda knew the version of him who thrived on competition, who leaned into the grind every single day, who felt alive chasing the next win, the next #1 hit, the next trophy to prove he actually belonged in Nashville. Gwen fell in love with a completely different version, the one who had already been broken open by divorce and public humiliation, who was tired of proving anything to anyone and just wanted to protect what felt real, even if it meant stepping out of the spotlight.
A suitcase, band-aids, pulling back out the driveway.
She sang those words knowing exactly what it meant to walk away from something that looked perfect on the outside, but felt completely empty inside. Kelly stood beside yet another version, the one who could laugh at his own image without taking himself too seriously. Who understood that fame is basically a game, and sometimes you gotta know when to step off the board before it breaks you completely. 3 vantage points, one man evolving in real time right in front of them. And here's the thing, nobody warns you about. Evolution can feel like betrayal to people who loved the earlier draft of you. Not because they're wrong for feeling that way, but because growth is messy, uncomfortable, and it definitely doesn't ask for permission first. Fans sensed something was shifting before any official announcement came out. The interviews got softer somehow. The jokes about retiring to the ranch someday stopped sounding like punchlines and started sounding like actual plans he was making. You could hear it in his tone during appearances. Slower. Less edge. More reflection. And here's the part nobody says out loud, because it sounds too real and uncomfortable. Sometimes stepping back isn't about burnout at all. It's about alignment, about finally matching who you actually are with how you're actually living your life. Because if you've ever achieved the thing you thought would complete you, and it didn't, you know that quiet disappointment intimately. You smile for the photos anyway. You wave at the crowds anyway. You cash the check anyway. But inside, you're asking bigger, scarier questions that keep you up at night. What actually matters now? What do I want my life to feel like when nobody's watching me? That's the energy insiders say surrounded those conversations. Not accusation, not drama, just recalibration. Figuring out what comes next when the old playbook stops working. Miranda represents a time when being the biggest name in country music was the entire goal. When every award meant validation, proof that the small-town kid from Oklahoma actually made it big. Gwen represents building a life that feels safe and warm, even if it's less flashy, less public, less about proving anything to the industry. Kelly represents surviving the public storm and coming out clearer, sharper, more honest on the other side of it. So imagine all 3 of those perspectives hovering around one impossible choice. Stay the brand that made you famous. Or finally, become the man you actually want to be. And here's where it gets even more layered and complicated. Because leaving The Voice didn't just affect Blake's life. It shifted entire dynamics for everyone around him. Kelly eventually moved on too. New projects in New York. New cities, new chapters being written. The Kelly Clarkson show wrapped up its run. Her whole life got reorganized. Gwen doubled down on family time and selective appearances, showing up only when it truly mattered to her, not just when the industry demanded her presence. Miranda kept carving her own lane, fiercely independent as always, releasing albums that proved she never needed Blake's name attached to hers to matter in country music. Each woman adapted in her own way. Each one moved forward on her own terms. Which raises a subtle but really powerful idea that most people completely miss. Maybe that conversation wasn't about who Blake should become at all. Maybe it was about giving him permission to change. Permission is so underrated, especially for men in the spotlight who feel like they gotta maintain an image constantly. There's this enormous pressure to stay consistent, to stay marketable, to stay the guy people expect when they buy a concert ticket or turn on their TV. But what if the most courageous move is actually disappointing the crowd? That tension, that fear of letting people down, that's what fans feel but can't quite name when they talk about Blake nowadays. When he jokes these days, it feels lighter somehow, less performative, less like he's playing a character he created 20 years ago and got stuck with. When he talks about the ranch, it doesn't sound like escapism anymore. It sounds like intention, like purpose. And intention scares industries that are built entirely on momentum, because momentum is loud and flashy and profitable. Stillness is risky. Stillness doesn't sell tickets or boost streaming numbers. But stillness might save your soul. There's also something deeply human about the idea that the most powerful conversations aren't actually confrontations at all. They're realizations. No one slams a fist on the table dramatically. No one says, "choose me or else," like this is some soap opera. Instead, there's just this shared understanding that cuts deeper than any argument ever could. We all knew different versions of you, Blake. Now you gotta decide which one actually feels honest to who you are today. That's not rivalry between these women. That's maturity. But maturity doesn't trend on social media, unfortunately. Drama does, so fans keep searching for hidden tension, for secret shade, for coded lyrics and songs that prove someone's still bitter years later. And maybe there were moments of discomfort during those talks. That's completely normal when past and present overlap like that. When the woman you used to wake up next to and the woman you wake up next to now are both genuinely concerned about the same thing. When past and present collide that directly, it forces reflection whether you want it or not. But reflection isn't war, it's growth. And here's something that hits deeper than any gossip column ever could. Each of these three women has built a life completely independent of Blake Shelton at this point. Miranda thrives in her own artistry, selling out stadiums on her own, winning awards on her own merit, proving she never needed him to shine bright. Gwen carries decades of reinvention with her, from No Doubt to solo pop stardom to country-adjacent wife and mother. Kelly commands her own stage, her own media empire, built on a voice that's never needed anyone's approval or permission. So the pressure in that conversation wasn't about possession or jealousy. It was about identity. Because when someone you once loved becomes someone completely new and different, it can make you question your own timeline. Did I help shape that growth in him, or was I just part of the lesson he needed to learn along the way? That's a heavy thought to sit with. And it lingers way longer than the conversation itself. Maybe that night, whether through direct words spoken or emotional ripple effects, or just the weight of so much shared history in one space, the realization was actually pretty simple. Blake doesn't belong to an era or a phase. He belongs to his present moment. And his present looks quieter than before. Smaller circle of people, fewer cameras around, way less noise. That doesn't mean less impact though. It just means different impact. The industry measures success in visibility, in chart positions, in how many times your face shows up on a screen somewhere. But personal success? That's measured in peace. In waking up and not feeling like you're wearing a mask for the world. Blake sang that at his wedding to Miranda years ago, but life didn't play out like the song promised it would. Sometimes God gives you people for seasons, not for lifetimes. And knowing the difference between those two things takes wisdom most people never actually find. Here's the quiet twist nobody really talks about. Sometimes the most intense pressure isn't coming from outside voices at all. Not from tabloids or obsessed fans or music industry executives with opinions. It's from inside yourself. From the younger version of you who once swore you'd never slow down, never step back, never let anyone see you as anything less than larger than life. From the partner who loved your ambition back when you were hungry and scrappy. From the friend who saw you at your most chaotic moments and loved you through all of it anyway. Reconciling all of that history takes real courage. Not the kind that gets you on stage in front of 50,000 screaming people. The kind that lets you sit in complete silence and admit out loud that you don't have all the answers figured out yet. So maybe the real story here isn't that three women sat down to confront Blake Shelton about his future. Maybe it's that their shared history, their combined perspectives, their overlapping concern for him, forced Blake to finally confront himself honestly. And once you do that, once you really look hard at who you've become versus who you're still pretending to be for everyone else, there's no going back to the old way. You simply cannot unsee that kind of truth about yourself. Because clarity, once you really see it, cannot be unseen ever again. Fans may never know the exact words that were spoken behind those ranch doors that night, but they can definitely feel the outcome in everything since. The pace shift in his career, the energy shift in his interviews, the priority shift in what he talks about caring about. And that's exactly why this moment matters more than people probably realize right now. Not because it's scandalous or gossipy, but because it's genuinely human in a way we can all relate to. You've felt this too, right? Outgrowing a version of yourself that someone else still recognizes and loves and expects from you. Choosing peace over applause even when the applause feels good. Realizing that success without alignment to who you really are feels empty and hollow, like winning a game you don't even want to play anymore. So when you hear Blake Shelton's name from now on, maybe it won't just echo with chart-topping hits or voice victories or celebrity gossip. Maybe it'll carry something quieter with it, something deeper and more meaningful. A man who finally decided that belonging somewhere specific mattered way more than being everywhere at once. And if that conversation behind those ranch doors helped him see that truth clearly for the first time, then maybe it wasn't the conversation he never wanted after all. Maybe it was exactly the conversation he desperately needed all along, the one that set him free.